Okay, almost there. Get ready.
Good afternoon, Teal Tribe. I'm Alana Feuchter, Senior Manager for National Programming. We are delighted to continue our Ask the Expert series today with a special art class. Quality of life is one of NOCC's 4 pillars, and as such, we are always looking for ways to help you deal with the physical and psychological side effects of living with and recovering from ovarian cancer. Many studies have found that art therapy can do just that, even when you may not see yourself as an artist. Art can provide a relaxing escape from treatment, reduce anxiety and fear of the future, and help you understand the emotions that go along with a cancer diagnosis. With us today is Barbara Burke, who has her MA-ED with an art concentration. She currently teaches middle school art, owns and operates her own art studio, BB Art Studios, and holds craft and wine nights for women in the Boston area. Today, she will teach us to Zentangle. This art form requires nothing but paper and pen, so it can be done while receiving treatment or waiting at a doctor's appointment, as well as in your own home. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you, Alana. Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here. I'm hoping that a lot of people enjoy what we have to offer. And as Alana said, my name is Barbara, and I am a lifelong artist, and I fell in love with Zentangles because Zentangles is a very relaxing form of art for all ages, all areas of art. If you feel like you're artistic, or if you feel like you are just totally not artistic, Zentangles is definitely something that you can do. I've been teaching this to first graders all the way up to people in their 80s, and with very positive outcomes. It's very relaxing. The name Zentangle has the word Zen right in it. I did not create Zentangles, but I really latched onto it to give a nice opportunity for people who feel like they need something that will relax them, but don't necessarily have a huge artistic talent. So enough about the talent part. Let's talk a little bit about the Zentangles, and then we'll get started. We only have about 30 minutes, so I want to make sure I cover everything to get you on your way to creating your own Zentangle. Zentangles is an inexpensive form of art where Alana said you do just need a pen. I recommend an ultra-fine black Sharpie or permanent marker. Gel pens are okay, but they tend to smudge as you run your hand across. They don't dry as quickly. So that's my recommendation. If you can get some kind of a permanent, ultrafine, even a micron pen, a little more expensive, that would be an ideal medium to work in. It's a very free-flowing, mindful, mindless, quiet, meditative type of art. When I've done this in my middle schoolers, and if you know middle schoolers, they're very chatty, very sociable. The room becomes completely quiet because they're totally into what they're doing. And it's so wonderful for me to see that because they're just totally enjoying it. So let's talk a little bit about Zentangles. I have some samples behind me here. And what you need to know is you need to have something to Zentangle or tangle or doodle in. Basically, you're doodling. If you're someone that doodles while you're on the phone, in a meeting, in a lecture, then you're already Zentangling or tangling anyway, doing design work. But you need something to work in or outside of. You need to have an idea of how you want to do your Zentangles. So I'm going to pull these examples off to show you one by one what I have here. Just make sure you guys can see them all. The first one that I want to show you is a Zentangle that is within what's called an organic shape. It's just a blob, undefined, soft-edged form that you just draw, like an amoeba. And that would be my border. My outside would be just this blob. Okay, so that is an organic shape, very simple to do. You just want to make sure you give yourself enough space inside to fill that with all kinds of design work. We have, the next one I have here to show you is something that's a little more recognizable. You can use lettering. You can use a favorite word. If you have an inspirational word, if you have a favorite person that you'd like to do their initials and do some work within. This one obviously says art, one of my favorite things. And I use block lettering for that. You can do bubble letters if you want, which have a softer edge. And I chose to do my Zentangling inside my letters. The next one I want to show you is actually a former student of mine, and she chose what's called a silhouette Zentangle. So she did her tangling outside of what would be considered her border or her edges. Her initials actually are OK, but it's kind of funny how it turned out to be OK. And she's then tangled outside. And this is white gel pen on black paper, white ink. So it's kind of fun to do it that way too. Here's another former student of mine who chose a recognizable character. She loved Disney World, and this is something that meant a lot to her. So she was able to draw a beautiful rendition of Mickey Mouse and Zentangled in certain areas, leaving blank spaces so we could see the detail, his characteristics. So he's recognizable as Mickey Mouse, and yet he has all kinds of beautiful design work inside. And this was gold ink, gold gel pen. Last but not least, I did want to show you, this is one that I worked on, again, an organic shape. It is not the black on white, it is white ink on black. And I'll talk a little bit about doing some kind of shading as we get into the design area. But what I'm needing you to do right now is to be thinking of what kind of a shape you would like to do your Zentangle in or around. Are you going to do an inside design, inside of the borders of something that's maybe organic or geometric? You can do a triangle, square, you know, you're just checking it out, trying it out. Maybe you want to do some testing. So that is something you need to think for just a minute. I'm going to show you a couple of more examples of something that would be fairly simple to do. You might want to just sketch your hand, trace your hand, and Zentangle inside, or again, outside of it. This is fairly easy to do. If you're just looking for a shape, you can't think of what you want to do, trace your hand. Again, making it big enough so you have enough space to do your work in, or small enough if you're going to do your work on the edges outside. Here is a start that I had. This is one of my exemplars I actually use in my classroom. This is bubble lettering. And as you can see in my bubble letters, and I will show you that in the organic shape as well, that so this doesn't seem overwhelming to fill, because I'm like, how do you fill an entire space with design work? You can break it down into spaces. I usually have my students break them down. I give them a number. You have to have 12 different spaces, and we work on it a little bit at a time. Zentangles are not something you finish in one seating unless you're going to sit there for hours. You want to take it with you or put it away, take it out, put it away as you can. Work on it a little bit at a time, just filling spaces. This makes it a little bit more manageable and I think a little less intimidating. So if you feel that that would work best for you, then definitely break it down. And you can always add more spaces as you're going. If you start tangling in here and you're like, well, I really kind of wish I had a smaller area to do my ice cream cones, if that's what you're going to draw, then just break it down, put another line in. It's a very forgivable, forgiving, reworkable form of art, even though we are working in marker. And that brings me to the point that you do not want to use pencil. You want to use, you're going to go right for it with the marker, no erasing. I'll show you how you can work a mistake that only you will know is a mistake into your design. If you do not want to be having to copy over pencil marks with marker, because that defeats the whole purpose of making it very spontaneous and very flowy and very relaxing. Because if you have to go back and copy everything, I think it kind of defeats the purpose. Just to give you some ideas of what's out there to help you, because you're like, okay, well, now I have my outside design. How do I know what to fill inside? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk in a minute about, or in a couple of minutes, about what you're going to use, what you can use for design work. But I'd like to take a brief pause right now just to put up a little bit of music. Music is a great background for doing Zentangling so that you're focusing, it's kind of meditative. I like to listen to classical piano, but whatever type of music you like that is going to help you to create, to relax, to take a step back, to take a deep breath, then think about listening to it while you're working. But what I would like for you to do right now is, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, and Alana is going to help a little bit with that, because it's kind of difficult for me to see what you might be asking while I'm demonstrating. But I'm going to work on my whiteboard. I'm going to create my space, and I would like for you to take your pen and paper and create whatever space you're going to use to do your tangling inside of. So is it going to be an organic shape? Will it be something a little more recognizable? Will it be a silhouette, meaning you're going to Zentangle around your border? That sounds kind of funny, but this actually becomes an internal border. Or are you going to do letters? Anything that I had up on the board, are you going to do your hand? So take right now, I'm going to say maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and don't worry if this is not going to be your final piece. If you feel like, oh, I don't really like it, continue with us with what you've drawn so that you can at least get the whole idea behind it and do the practice. And then you can always start another Zentangle on your own if you come up with another idea. So I'm thinking I'm going to turn the music up so that we have maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and then have you do on your paper your design. While I do mine, I'm just going to do I'm going to do an organic shape, because for me right now, that would be the simplest way to show you. So music is going up, and you are putting your pen to paper, and let's see what you can come up with.
Thanks, Barbara. I'm going to start drawing myself, and I'm sure everybody out there is going to do the same.
Oh, awesome. I hope so.
So Barbara, while we're waiting for people, I'm just going to let you know that we have a few people who've checked in. Some people from Frederick, from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, from Central Maryland. And then Terry is saying hi from Florida. And she took a class about 5 years ago while she was in the diagnostic diagnosis process.
Oh, wonderful. That's awesome. Yeah, it's such a great, it's just wonderful because you can take it out anywhere. If you're waiting for somebody somewhere, you can have a small one. I love to read too, but sometimes I like to pull out my drawing, my Zentangle. I think maybe like 30 seconds more because I want to make sure I get all the information squeezed into our short time here. So give about 30 seconds more and then we'll get moving on to the tangling part. And if you have any questions, of course, please write them in. Okay, I'm going to move us right along. Hopefully you have some kind of a border that you're going to be working with. Again, if it's something that you're just doing for practice right now, perfect. Give it a little more thought. It's kind of hard to come up with something in such a short amount of time, but maybe you do have something right away. Maybe you were thinking ahead of time. So my organic shape right here is just that simple amoeba-like blob. No beginning, no end. Very easy, especially for practicing if you don't have a whole lot of time, but it's a large shape. Now, obviously I'm working on a whiteboard. So looking at me and the size of this whiteboard, it's large. Typically you work on, you know, probably an 8 by 11 or 12 or 14 or 14, 11 by 14 piece of paper. But for purposes of demonstrating, I'm working larger. Your design work will be smaller, much smaller on your paper. But again, because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing, I've made it on this fairly large rolling whiteboard. So let's talk a little bit about the designs. If you are someone who can come up with some great ideas right away, and then all of a sudden you get blocked, like, oh, how do I continue? What do I put in now? What do I do? If you're wanting information on Zentangles, and you can also call it tangles because there's tangles out there as well. There are several, and I'm not promoting these books. I just have these for my classroom, so pass them out to my students. You can find all kinds of information on Zentangles, and inside these books, it's wonderful because they'll give you not only ideas of design work, but maybe how to create shading, et cetera, inside of your Zentangles. So they're very helpful. My students use them a lot. Again, there are so many of them, some great pieces, some work. And again, because they break them down, it's a little less intimidating if art is not maybe your number one thing that you're doing in your life, but it should be because it's fine. Okay, so I also do for my students, I print out different things on, you just can go online onto Google everything. You can Google Zentangle designs. It'll come up with some ideas for you to do, to work. Googling Zentangle designs, look at the images, and there is just so many. It's a plethora of designs that you can use. But it's wonderful to use some of your own original stuff too. So how do you do that? How do I come up with these designs? What am I going to put in this big space now? So I'm going to pretend I'm brand new to Zentangling. So because this is such a large area for me to fill in, I'm like, wow, that's a lot. How am I going to keep on filling and filling and filling? Let's turn my music down just a touch. So again, I spoke about this a few minutes ago about breaking it down. Make some spaces for yourself. Now you can break down the entire piece because with my students, I give them you have to have a minimum of 12 or 14 spaces to fill. Always can do more, don't do less. That's just part of what my curriculum is. And I have them do the spaces right away. You don't have to do your spaces right away. This paper right here, spaces right away. But if you want to just take and say, well, you know, maybe I will just start in this little section right here. Let me just start my work here and see what I can put and then grow off from there. And just as you go, you know, make another space. You can always make your space look larger if you want in the end, because if I'm doing something in here and I really like what I'm doing lines perhaps, well, I can just simply have these lines grow out and they can change as I'm growing. And all of a sudden I have more different designs, but I've made that space look larger. Okay, you can do that. So let's talk about the design. Where can you get your design ideas? The design, like all of art, is a self-expression. So think about things that you like in life, like in my Zentangle right here. And this is one of the first ones I did. If you were to look closely, you might see some of the things that I like one of my favorite things. I think I've mentioned ice cream before. So as you know, ice cream is really a biggie in my life. I put ice cream cones down there. Why not? I like ice cream. It's part of who I am. I like sunrises, or there can be a sunset. I like the moon and stars. And then I just had some fun with different designs. I like ocean life. So as you can see, I have some seaweed, some fish, and some of it's just designs. I like flowers, line work. It doesn't need to be anything too complicated, or it can be very complicated. Again, this is something that's totally up to you. So be spontaneous with some of your doodles. Zentangles are basically doodles within doodles. There's a lot of repetition. Repetition is really good because it really adds some fullness to your design. So I didn't just put one ice cream cone, I put several. I did several raindrops. And in my raindrops, these are all designs within designs within designs. So that repetition is where you start to kind of zone in, zone out from the world and zone into your work. And everything just kind of, your cares kind of fall away for a short while. You feel like very relaxed in your body. It's just a wonderful repetition, not thinking, not thinking, just go moving right along to what you can come up with. So don't get frustrated with not coming up with a design. Use some of these tools. Internet, get a book if you want. Look around you. What can you draw? Look out your window. What's outside? Do you like sunshine? Do you like rain? What are you feeling? How are you feeling today? It doesn't have to be just things that you like. You can also make this, because it's a self-expression, you can make this something that maybe you don't like and put an X, or make somehow a way of making it look like this makes me really upset. So I'm going to put this here and just leave it. You know, I'm not someone who loves heavy rainstorms in the summer. I like the rain, but I want to be outside. So I really want to have an opportunity. So I might put something down there that looks like, yeah, it's something I don't like. And maybe I'll put a little line through it so that it indicates that I don't like it. Do you like to read? Do you like to eat? What kind of activities do you enjoy? Do you have family? Do you like to go out with your family? How can you indicate that on your Zentangle? Are you just a design person that you might like hearts and flowers and lightning bolts? I mean, you can mix them all up. It doesn't have to have one theme. You can just mix everything in there. One of the things I like to tell my students is, when you're stuck, just say, okay, who are you? Give some thought. Who are you? What do you want to tell people on your paper? I'm an artist. I did the word art. Okay, I'm a grandmother. I might incorporate my grandsons' names in here somehow because they're very important to me. My children, the same thing. What do you want? What do you want to do? What do you want in life? What are your wishes and your dreams? Put them in your Zentangle. Maybe a goal, make it like a goal sheet. Where do you like to be? Where's your happy place? And what's in that happy place? Do you have a special room in your house that's just your room? And that you have it done in a beach theme, or you have it done in a lake theme, or a winter theme if you're a skier. Do you like to ski? These are the things you can incorporate into your Zentangle, and it really becomes a reflection of you while it's helping you to just kind of relax and enjoy it. When you're doing your Zentangle, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling like this heavy thunderstorm today? You're having a rough day. I feel like a thunderstorm. Throw it down there, draw it on there, get it out. Are you feeling like a light rain, gentle rain? Throw some umbrellas in there. I have umbrellas in mine, and not to say that you have to, but just indicate maybe how you're feeling. Sunshine, I feel great. I feel like sunshine. It might be miserable outside, but inside I'm feeling great, and I want to show it. Put it right in your Zentangle. Swirls, dots, spots, X's, stars, suns, dogs, cats, pets. So many different things you can put in there. Lines, a repetition of line. One of the things you can do is just like I started this line, and you can make your lines get closer in one area. And I have to say my challenge is doing this on the whiteboard because it doesn't really come across as well as it would on my paper because it's a very thick pen. But I can go thinner and then make it look like there's some movement in here. Okay. When it comes to doing your Zentangles, aesthetically, the look, it's great if you can, it's not required because there's nothing required here, to have some lights and darks. Well, how do we do that? We are working with one color right now. You can add, typically monochromatic is the theme for Zentangles, which means it's just one color. Working with black, black on white, white on black, one color on a background. You can add color to it, and there are books that'll show you how to do that. I'm more of a purist, so I really like I like the design work of just the one color. I think it's very impactful. But what you want to do, if you'll notice on this one here, there are light areas and dark areas. And the way to accomplish that using just one color is the closer together your designs are. If you're using black, let's just talk about the black on white. The closer together your design work is, the darker it's going to appear. The further apart, the sparser, the more gray it's going to look, giving it a lighter appearance. So when I hold this back here, it's easier to see it at a distance, the lights and the darks. I have some very bold, heavy darks, which is colored in a lot of ink. You can add a lot of ink. I put a background here, but you'll notice some of my areas are lighter. Like this is very light. The black pen is still on there, but they're a little sparser. These are further apart. These are more concentrated or closer together, compacted, and that'll give you your darks. It helps to give you darks. So if you want to have a good mix, which is really a wonderful way to be, that's one of the requirements for my students, again, only because I have to grade them and I have to give them some standards to go by. I have to have half lights, half darks. I want to see some movement in there in terms of shading. And you can't really shade with just one color. It's kind of challenging. So if you're using white, if you do want to do white on black, it's the opposite. The more white, the more ink, the closer your pieces are together, the brighter it's going to appear because you're hiding the black paper. So it's just the opposite of the black and white, but it gives you some shades and shadows. And you'll notice on this one, my closer together design work and more color, obviously that's lighter. And the ones that are pulled apart, more of the black is showing through. Okay. Repetition is awesome. I don't want you to stress. You need to just remember, if you're feeling stressed while you're working on this, maybe it's just not the right time for you to be working on it. Put it aside, come back to it. You will not finish this in one day. Maybe it'll take you a year. Maybe it'll take you less. Maybe you'll get so into it that you'll make several of them, which would be awesome. I would love to be able to see some of the work that's out there because I really enjoy other people's work. I'm trying to think if there's anything I haven't covered. When are you finished? That's always a good question with any type of art. When do I decide I'm finished with this particular Zentangle? That's up to you. You can keep going. This one I feel is not finished. I'm going to go back in and do some more work because it's just the way I feel. You decide that. When do I walk away? When do I say, okay, this one's done. I'm going to start another one. That's up to you. So I'm hoping that I helped a little bit. I didn't do a lot of design work. Again, dots. And because I want you to come up with your ideas, I'll do these dots up top closer. And I think this will probably be getting close to our finish time. But if I put more dots up in this upper corner and fewer or further spaced dots below, you're going to see it seemed a little bit darker in the hopes that you can see this. Let me move it and a little bit lighter. And mistakes, no such thing. Work them in. If I made a mistake here, like, oh, ooh, I just made a line here and I didn't want that line. Well, I'm just going to start taking my design and create lines. And nobody but me is ever going to know that you made what you considered a mistake. Work your mistakes in. If you make mistakes, there are no bad mistakes in art. And I think that's probably about it. If there are any questions, I would love to know at this time, maybe Alana, if anybody has written any questions in, or perhaps you can reach out to, I guess, Alana via email or whatever, and she can get back to me and
We
tell
have
me.
a lot of hearts, and Barbara said this is exactly what I needed right now. Thank you so much. So I think everybody who is out there is enjoying it. I do have some questions. I don't see any yet, although we'll leave it open for a few more minutes.
Okay.
Just as I'm doing this as alongside, when you're picking your shape
Yes.
for the smaller, the smaller area, should it always be an organic shape, or does that look better than maybe more of a block?
Oh, no, you can mix and match. Are you talking about inside your design work or the actual border?
Not the border, but inside, the smaller shapes.
No, I would totally mix them up. Let me see if I can find an example. So for example, as I come closer here, these are more geometric. You can see some triangles in here,
Right.
but yet right beside it, I have my flowy, more organic shapes. I put a sun, and there's really, sometimes there's no top or bottom because you've just mixed them up. This is clearly a geometric shape, but then I have my organic line work. So I would suggest whatever you see visually, mentally, visually, or put down on your paper, or practice. You can take a piece of scrap paper and practice, see what you like, if they look good together, if you want to do organic and geometric. I say anything goes.
One other quick question. Where you are there on the left now, could you maybe pick up on the right-hand side, or do you need to go straight from where you've been before?
Really good question. Absolutely not. Now, this is one that I did not fill in all my blocks. If I was going to do all blocks, you could do it, but you can work anywhere on your paper. I honestly don't think there's any of my papers where I did work left to right, right to left. If you're an analytical person and that's something that you need to do, then do it. I am more of a free thinking artist brain. My right and my left brains are very different. Perhaps my husband, who's an engineer, would want to do the left to right, and that's fine, as long as he's happy, as long as you're happy with how you're doing it. Work anywhere. Work anywhere.
Awesome. I'm going to come back, and I want to thank you, Barbara, for this. This was fantastic, and I think everyone who was enjoying it now and who will watch it later is going to probably make their own. And it is a good cathartic, relaxing hobby maybe to pick up. So I hope that everybody enjoyed it. Again, thank you, Barbara, and thank you everyone for your time today.
My pleasure.